Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Hello, Margaret. Lovely to see you. Hello, Ned. I
Hi.
think this might be your first time, Ned, or have I seen you before?
No, I think this is my first.
I thought it was a new face. Welcome, Ned. Thank you for joining me. Hello, Margaret. Definitely familiar face, Margaret. Margaret's actually one of my clients, writing an amazing book. So thank you so much for coming along. Stanley, always lovely to see you. I feel like I see you all the time now, Stanley. We've got to stop meeting like this. People will talk. But welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm just going to let the room run for another couple of minutes and then we'll get started, just to see if there's going to be a few other people who are going to join us. In the meantime, while we're waiting, what I'd like you to do is just go into the chat and let me know what you'd like to gain from this particular session. You're giving me 45 minutes of your valuable time today. I'm sure you're all extra busy and you don't really have lots of free time. So the fact that you're here means that you must want something from this session. So if you just go into the chat now and put in what you'd like to gain from this session, and then hopefully my presentation today and what we're talking about in the forum will cover it. But if it doesn't, it means I'll be able to cover it in the Q&A portion of the forum. And if it's a really, really juicy topic that I can't cover in full today, I may even devote a future forum meeting towards it. So if you go into the chat now, that would be great. We've got one more joining us. Welcome, David. Lovely to have you here. How are you doing?
Yeah, lovely. Thanks. Lovely to be here. Hello, everyone. Thanks,
Hello,
Natalie.
David. Thank you so much for coming. We're just going to let the room run for a couple of more minutes, see who else is going to join us. I've just told the others, just go into the chat, David, and put in what you'd like to gain from today's session, because that really helps me focus and also make sure that everybody gets what they're wanting to get from this session. Because like I said, you're giving me 45 minutes of your valuable time. You're not here for your health, really, are you? So you definitely want to get something out of this. So go into the chat and just put in what you'd like to gain from today's session. Oh, isn't it interesting when people's various AI wants to come into the room, but they're not here? I don't mind AI coming in, but where's the human being? Please have a human being attached to them. So I'm going to say no to AI because I can't see the humans are attached to them. But yes, just go into the chat and let me know what you'd like to get. So today we're talking about how authors get media attention. It's something that I've done. It's something a lot of my clients have been able to do, and really give you like a step-by-step of how to build that media presence. So we've got David saying, finding more about the community and how we can support each other. Fantastic, David, you're in the right place. Ned saying, I'm a fractional marketing director for organizations that put purpose before profit and wish to further raise my profile. Fantastic, Ned. We definitely should be talking. So that's fantastic. Okay, so I think we'll get started. We may have a few more people joining us, but we will see. I'll just have to let them in as and when they turn up. And as long as they're human and not AI, I will let them in. Okay, so if I can ask for the next few minutes only, if you can just put yourself on mute. You may have noticed that I'm walking on a treadmill. I've actually got very good at walking on the treadmill and talking at the same time. However, if there's any loud noises, I might just fall off my treadmill and you don't want to see that. So to help me out, if you're on mute, that would be great. But then obviously later on, I want you to come off mute and get involved with the community. So Stanley says, discovering the best way to stand out in a digital world of information. Very true. It's very difficult to stand out now, isn't it, Stanley? Because just information content everywhere. And then Margaret saying, hope that if my book will be published, how to promote the content. Yes, we'll definitely be covering that. Okay, so let me just share my screen first of all. Let me do that. Right, so can everyone see my screen? Thumbs up so I know that everyone's, and it's not just me talking by myself. Excellent. Okay, so let's start this. Okay, so first of all, welcome to the Thought Leader Author Forum. We've got a few familiar faces and we've got some new faces as well. So thank you so much for coming along. Those who've been here before will know the format, but we do have some new faces. So the format for all the forums is it's in two parts. The first part is we discuss the topic of the day. So today's topic is all about how authors use their books to get media attention. And then part two, my favorite bit of the forum, is when it becomes an open discussion. And that's where you really get a lot of value. The reason why I created this weekly forum is I get asked to speak a lot and do various workshops and masterclasses for other people. So I'm very used to that. But I'll be honest with you, Margaret laughs at me whenever I say this, but I get bored of my own voice after a while because I speak a lot. I kind of have to doing what I do. And the reason I created this forum was to have, okay, the first 10, 15 minutes, I'll give you a little bit of my expertise and experience. But then after that, I want it to be a forum where people are actually asking questions and giving feedback and telling me their experiences. So do get involved, because you'll find you'll get the most out of this forum when you really get involved in part two, where you start asking questions and giving your opinion and getting feedback. Okay. And for all of you who have turned up today, you'll also get this workbook that will go through everything I discussed today and far more than I'm able to cover, because we only have a short amount of time together. So if you want to scribble down notes, feel free to do so, but don't worry if you miss anything or you think, oh my God, that's something that she said was really, really important. I will make sure, my assistant will make sure that she sends you out this workbook. You'll get it tomorrow morning via email, okay? And also, just to thank you for coming to the Thought Leader Author Forum, you can, in fact, I'm going to do this now. You can pick one of these courses. Let me just see, hopefully I should have, there we go. I'm going to put this into the chat now, so that way you guys can go and do it. So that's in the chat now. So if you click on that link, what will happen is you will be able to pick one of these courses and we will donate on your behalf. So it costs you nothing, not even a penny. But just to thank you for coming to the Thought Leader Author Forum, you can pick one of these amazing courses. Yeah, I know. The difficulty is, which one do you pick? I'm like, yeah, I know. They're all incredible. But pick one and we will make a donation on your behalf. So you can go away feeling really smug that you've done your good deed for the day just by turning up here. Okay, so I ran a poll earlier this week. I wanted to ask my network, have you ever gained media attention? I wanted to see how important it was for businesses, because I did wonder, because I do think sometimes maybe it's no longer all that important. Maybe with so much online content available now, maybe a lot of business owners now don't see the point in actually getting traditional media attention. Well, I think the results speak for themselves. 68% of people said yes several times. It's something they actively go and do. 13% said yes. 19% said no. But what was interesting in the comments was not one person who said no said that they didn't see the point of it. It was more a case of, I just don't know how to do it. I'd love to do it, but I don't even know where to start. So that really made me feel like, wow, this is interesting. Even in this online world where we have so much content, there still seems to be an element of gravitas that business owners feel that they can gain by getting media attention. And it's true. So this is just a small selection of the comments that were left. So you've got Rick, who says earning media coverage can be a game changer for purpose-driven businesses. It amplifies your mission and reaches a wider audience who care about the impact you're making. I think Rick has really hit the nail on the head there. It's a game changer for all kinds of businesses, but I think it's the biggest game changer for purpose-driven businesses, because purpose-driven businesses, it's all about the why you do what you do. It's not just about trying to make a potload of money. That is nice, of course, but the more important thing is why you do what you do and why your way of doing things is better than other ways of doing things. And that's why media attention can be a real game changer for purpose-driven businesses. We've got Steven says, preach, media attention can be magic for brand awareness and getting your name out there. I couldn't agree more. And Flora says, no, but I'd love to. So she was one of the 19% that no. But again, like I said, not one person who said no said they didn't see the point of it. It was more a case of, I just don't even know where to start. Like Flora, I'd love to. Any tips on how to get media attention? This is exactly what I'm going to be covering today. So this is my way. By the way, Margaret again will laugh at me whenever I say this. My brain's a sieve, guys. I have all this information that goes in and it just floods out. Okay, I'm not very good at remembering much at all. So many years ago, I started to create little infographics and mnemonics and things to help me remember stuff, because I was just so bad. My memory was so bad. what was interesting is a few years later, I realized that most people are like me. Most people have brains like sieves. We take in information and then it disappears. So I've now started showing people all of my little mnemonics, all of my little infographics, because I've noticed other people are just like me and they forget really good information. So what I've done here is I've created something that hopefully you'll be able to remember. What you want to do to really build up media attention in your business or brand, you want to create a media machine. And as you can see, the machine is an acronym. So the first letter, you got M that stands for something, then A, then C, and so on. Okay. And hopefully then you'll be able to remember all of this, because there's only so much, like the workbook that I'm sending out tomorrow morning, that's going to be really helpful to you. But how often are you going to refer back to that workbook? Maybe a couple of times and then you'll forget about it. Whereas if you internalize this, this could stay with you for the rest of your life. Okay. So let's go through this. M, the first M in machine, the first letter of machine, stands for me focused. Become me focused. What I mean by that is concentrate on the outlets, the media that you consume. When I speak to a lot of my clients and I say, well, where do you want to be? Where do you want to see yourself? It's very usual for people to say things like, oh, I want to be in the Financial Times, or I want to be in the Guardian. Or if they're in the US, I want to be in the New York Times. And I'll go, oh, okay, so do you read that? No, I've never read it before in my life. Like, oh, okay, so you want to be in a publication that you've never read in your life, or you read very, very sporadically. Not that I'm saying you can't target media that you've never read before, but you feel will help your brand. But when you're starting out, you want to focus on the media outlets that you consume. There's a reason for this, because first of all, you don't want to get overwhelmed. There are so many media outlets out there. Overwhelm only leads to inaction. If you think, oh my God, I need to contact all of these different newspapers, or all of these different radio stations, or all of these different TV channels, you're just going to get overwhelmed and you're not going to do anything. So focusing on what you like narrows it down. The second thing is, what you focus on is usually likely to be something to do with what you do in your brand or business. So chances are you're already reading magazines or periodicals, you're watching channels, you're listening to podcasts that are to do with your business or brand. Lots of people do. So therefore, that focusing on those makes a lot of sense. And finally, when you're first starting out and you don't have a lot of media attention, you need to make those people, those journalists, those TV producers, those radio producers, you got to get across to them that you like them. And one of the nicest ways and the easiest ways you can do that is by saying, oh, I've been watching your show for the last 3 years. My favorite episode was when you interviewed so-and-so person. Or I love that article you did in this paper from 3 months ago. That was just so hard hitting and you were on the money there. That sort of thing really, really helps. One of the biggest things that PR experts, I have a number of PR experts who work in my business. One of the biggest things that they do and they spend a lot of time on is actually listening to podcasts, watching TV shows, listening to radio shows. And the reason why they do that is when they start to speak to those journalists and those producers, they can butter them up. Basically, that's the best phrase I can use, by saying, oh my God, I loved it when you interviewed that person. I love this work that you did. However, so PR experts, they do that, but that's their job. They're getting paid to spend time doing that. The average business owner or brand owner, you're probably thinking, well, when am I going to have time to like research somebody and go and read all of the articles that they've created, or go and listen to all of the shows that they've ever done? You don't, because you're running a business as well. This is why if you focus on becoming me focused, they're going to be media that you're already consuming anyway. Therefore, it's not an extra job for you to now go and research. It's media you're already consuming. This is your low-hanging fruit. These are the people you go for first. A from machine is become attractive to the media. What I mean by attractive is you want to basically let the media know what's the story behind you. What's your story? There's a lot of people who make the mistake of thinking that just because their business or brand has achieved something, for example, they've been around for 5 years, that in itself is something that a journalist should cover. The reality is there's no story there. So your business has been going for 5 years. Wonderful. Pat on the back. But that's not a story. The story is your why you do what you do. And like I said before, it's even more important as a purpose-driven business owner to really get your mission and your story out there. So this is where you need to think about, where's the story? How do I become really attractive to the media? Now, some of you will know, a couple of the new people may not know, I am a book publisher. So I help people write and publish books. So being an author immediately makes you attractive. So that is something that you need to leverage. You need to let people know you're an author. If your book isn't out yet, let them know that the book launch is coming up. That's very attractive. That's newsworthy that you're having a book launch. But even if your book is already gone, say you've already launched your book, it's like, okay, I've already launched my book now, so I can't do that. Well, how can you attach it to what's happening in the news right now? That's called newsjacking, by the way. It's a portmanteau of news hijacking. And what you're actually doing is you're looking what's topical right now and seeing what you do, see how that fits in with some topical news. That makes you attractive. You always got to be thinking, put yourself into the shoes of a journalist. Just because you want to be in the newspapers isn't good enough for a journalist to say, yeah, I'm interested in putting in the newspapers. You've got to think about what's in it for them and what's in it for their readers. So think about how you can become attractive to the media. Like I said, if you've written a book, half the work's already done, because in the book, you would have gone into what your mission is, what your cause is, why you do what you do. So that makes it very, very easy for you to be attracted to the media. If you haven't written a book, that doesn't mean you have to write a book. It certainly helps, but think about your stories, your angles, and how you can attach it to the topics of the day. Okay. C stands for keep your cool. I added this in actually because about 4 years ago in 2019, I had one client based in New York, and she actually burnt herself out within 3 months. She ended up becoming very, very ill because her book launched and she said yes to every single interview request, everything. She just said yes to everything. It doesn't work. All that happened was she ended up having to take 6 months off. That's even worse. So she got loads of buzz for 3 months and then needed 6 months off. So keep your cool. Let the momentum build up. Don't feel like you have to say yes to absolutely everything. You can be discerning. You can actually ask, if people request for interview, ask them questions such as, okay, well, tell me who your target demographic is. How many people download this podcast, or how many viewers do you have, or what is the circulation, what is the number of readership? You need to make sure it's worth your time and you don't stretch yourself too thin like this client of mine did, who ended up making herself very ill after 3 months. So please, whatever you do, I know it's exciting, especially if you've launched a book like my client had. I completely get where she was coming from, but your health is more important than getting media attention. Let the tension build up over time. You will build up momentum over time. You don't need to do everything in 3 months. I think it's especially, the issue is especially with book authors, because they're told time and time again, you've got a 3-month window to make hay when the sun shines. I'm telling you right now, it's an absolute codswallop. It's nonsense. Some of you laughing now. It's the, yes, I think this is the problem when someone takes a little bit of advice and then adds stuff to it. What the truth is that yes, when you launch a book, the first 3 months it is seen as a new book. After that, it is seen as an older book, so you will get less attention. However, first of all, if you're in a fast-paced industry, you probably need to update your book once every 18 months to 2 years anyway. Well, guess what? You can now have another launch, second edition of your book, so you can start it all over again. And thirdly, what I've already said before, be clever. You know what I said previously? Become attractive to the media. You can have a book that's several years old, but if you can now attach it to something topical happening now, then suddenly people are interested in this book all over again. So you don't have to go crazy. Keep your cool and don't lose your health over this. H from machine is home. as in start close to home. This is a big one that lots of my clients forget, and I have to point out to them. Everyone wants to go straight to nationals and internationals now. I think it's because we live in such a global world. So, I mean, I'm guilty of it as well. I'm far more likely to know, at the moment, I'm far more likely to know what is happening in Gaza than I know what's happening in my city. Because that's just the world we live in. We live in a globalized world. So I know what's happening. Well, I know what the major conflicts in the world are. I know what's going on. And yet I don't even know what's going on in my own city most of the time. And because of this attitude, it means that local media players, your local newspapers, your local radio channels, your TV channels, they are crying out for content and can't get enough content because people have almost forgotten them. But here's the thing. If you start close to home, if you start looking at, well, who are the local players next to me? Who are my local papers? Who are my local radio shows, my local TV producers, even local podcasts? Who are those people? And you start reaching out to them. First of all, you're going to get a much easier yes from those people because, like I said before, they're crying out for content. Secondly, if you're not very good at media, if you're just getting your, you're getting your feet wet, you can make all the mistakes you want here. It's not a big deal. Most local radio channels or TV channels then don't actually get that much in the way of viewership. So you can make mistakes and you don't have to feel like, oh my God, I've just done a huge mistake in front of thousands or even tens of thousands of people. You can cut your teeth with these small players. And the final benefit of this is you can, not only can you get good at it, you are now building up momentum with the local players, and then you can move on to the bigger players. I started off writing, well, most people think I started off my journalist career at the Manchester Evening News. What a lot of people don't realize is for a year previous to that, I actually worked for a tiny little rag called the Salford Advertiser. So tiny, I think it still exists, still a tiny little rag. And then after I got enough experience at the Salford Advertiser, I moved on to the Manchester Evening News, which is still a local paper, but quite a big regional, quite prestigious local paper. And what I found really interesting, which I had no idea about until I joined the industry, is Manchester Evening News was looking at these tiny little rags, seeing what stories were doing well and stealing those stories and doing their own version. And guess what the nationals do as well? They look at the local papers and they can steal them. So don't think, oh gosh, it's a tiny paper. It only has a circulation of about 1,000. Don't sniff at those players. Really, really don't. Start contacting them. They're crying out for content. Get your feet wet. Make your mistakes. If you're going to do something stupid, do it with these people because there's not that many people watching them. And then what you can even do is all the experience that you gain on the local scene, you can even create a media page. In fact, let me see. I'm going to actually show you my media page because I think it's so much better for you guys to actually see a media page in action rather than just me showing you the slide. So where's my media page? Here it is. Well, this is annoying. I can't. There we go. Media room. So this is my media page. And this is just some of the articles that have been written about me, some of the podcasts I've been on, and it kind of goes on. Links to shows that I've been on, whether it's TV channels or radio shows or podcasts. You can, I mean, okay, you're probably thinking, well, Natalia, you've been on loads of stuff. That's why I didn't start off like this. This page was tiny when I started off. It only had like 3 things on it. But you can build out your media page. And trust me, when you go to a major national paper, they're not going to look through and go, oh, these are just tiny papers. They're actually impressed because even though they're tiny papers, they're saying, okay, yeah, this person hasn't had any exposure nationally yet, but this is showing me somebody who knows what they're doing. They've already made their mistakes. David's nodding his head. I can see they've already made their mistakes. They've already cut their teeth on the local scene. It's probably time to get them into something national. Yeah. So, and you also have to remember, a lot of these journalists and TV producers, the major ones, they didn't start off there. They also started off in these small players. So they don't sniff at these small players. They actually like them. And they go, oh, that's cool. This person's been on this small show. And okay. So you can start building out your own media page. So when you're ready to go to those big nationals or even internationals, you've got something like this that you can just direct them to and say, hey, look at how much experience I've got. Look at what I've already done. Yes, only on the local scene, but look at what I've done. So whatever you do, let me just go back to this. Whatever you do not ignore what is close to home. I've seen so many people, they just go straight out to, I want to be on this big, massive podcast. I want to be on this big TV show. That's not how it works. You got to start small and build yourself up. And close to home is where it's at. Oh, I've already shown you this. I in the machine is don't ignore the internet. This is for old people like me. Only joking. No, actually not joking. It's very true. I've noticed with a lot of my clients, it seems to be the over 40s forget the internet. The under 40s don't, because they were pretty much brought up with the internet. But if you're over 40 like I am, sometimes we forget the internet. We kind of, I guess we grew up with the prestige of papers and TV and radio. We forget that there are now YouTube channels that have higher viewing figures than major TV networks. There are podcasts and that have higher downloads and higher listenership than radio shows. Yeah, there are blogs out there that have more credibility and more hits per day than the major newspapers. So this is, like I said, this is especially I tend to find with my clients who are 40 and over, in that when they're thinking of media and attention, they're really focused on newspapers, TV, and radio. Those seems to be the three areas. You need to stop being so blinkered. There are YouTube shows, there are podcasts that actually dwarf the figures of traditional media. So whatever you do, don't forget the internet. It's huge. N from machine, this is a big one, especially as a former journalist. It was one of my pet peeves. Please give notice to media outlets. You'll be amazed how many times when I was a journalist, people would contact me. Can you please put this in the newspaper? Okay, when's it happening? In 6 days. I'm like, right, okay. What do you want me to do with this? What do you want me to do with this? I remember once my editor, the Manchester Evening News, once telling me, he said it in jest, but he was serious. He did that thing, you know, people say something jokingly, but they actually mean it. He said this thing in jest, but I knew he meant it. He said the only way he would accept me missing a deadline was if I died or I was in a coma in hospital. He said, even if you're actually lying in a hospital bed, if your brain is still working and you still have got access to both your arms, you should be able to keep working on the newspaper. Now, he said this jokingly, but I have a funny feeling he actually meant it. We were not allowed to miss deadlines. If you've ever read a newspaper, you will never see a blank column because somebody forgot or didn't meet their deadline. It just was not allowed. If it meant that you had to work till 3 a.m. to hit your deadline, you did it. That's the way journalists and TV producers and radio producers, that's how they work. So for you to turn up a few days before you want something covered, it's not only something that they can't do, it's actually disrespectful. So please give notice, okay? If you've got a book launch coming up, you should be telling people at least a month in advance, ideally 2 to 3 months in advance. If you've got anything else, you just need to make sure whatever news piece that you wanted to give to people, you need to plan several weeks in advance. And if you can, a couple of months in advance. Let people know. If you're doing an event or you're speaking at an event, let people know. Chances are this isn't something that you've just thought of and then doing a few days later. Usually would have had some kind of lead time, usually for several months if you're doing an event of some sort. So you've got no excuse. If you want media attention, work with the journalists, work with the TV producers. It used to make me hopping mad when people will be calling me, wanting me to put something into the paper and give me just a few days notice. It would make me really, really mad. And it leaves a bad taste in my mouth, to the point that when that person contacts me again and does give me notice, I still don't want to put their stuff into the paper. So you don't want to, this will set people up in the wrong way. It sets them on edge. So don't do that. Really be respectful of these people's time. They have deadlines that they must absolutely categorically meet. Be respectful of that and give them lots of notice to cover. And you do that, trust me, they will feel that respect and they'll want to help you and put the limelight on you and your brand and your cause and mission. Final thing, this is something that not enough people do. And especially if you're an author, this is an easy thing. Ask for endorsements, okay? So if you're a purpose-driven business owner, you're probably already working and collaborating with other purpose-driven businesses. Get them to endorse you. If you've got a book out, get them to endorse your book. This goes a huge way when you're trying to sway journalists and TV producers and radio producers. If you can say, hey, I've got this story and I'm also endorsed by 5 of these businesses in the local area, for example, that's going to make the journalist think, wow, okay, I do need to feature this person. So a lot of people don't, I don't know whether it is, maybe it's the British in us. Stanley, you can probably say Americans are you guys better at asking for things? I always get the feeling that Americans are more able to just be like, hey, this is what I want, because your culture allows for that. The British culture, we're not meant to be doing stuff like that. We're meant to be all so humble. And no, this is not the time to be humble. Go out there, and if you've done a good job for a client or you've had a fantastic collaboration with another business owner, ask them for endorsements and get it to put it into writing. If you can then put it on the back of your book or put it on your website or wherever, make sure anybody that you speak to in the media is aware of these endorsements, because that will go a long way. I know when I was a journalist, if I saw this one was endorsed by various other business owners who are well known, then I thought, okay, this person is a serious person. Let me feature that person. So make use of endorsements, ask for endorsements whenever you can. Okay, so let me actually give you a very, very quick, I guess, oh, we've got somebody who's coming in late. So we'll see if she's able to come in. This is one of my clients, Sandra Namoto. She's based over in Vancouver in Canada. And she did this. So why can't I move this slide? Here we go. So she actually did the Media Machine. So her book came out, it will now be 18 months ago, actually maybe close to 2 years now, her book came out. And for the first year, she did exactly this on the left-hand side. She did the Media Machine. She focused on the channels, first of all, that she consumed, because those were easy. She can go to those people and say, hey, I love your shows. I've been watching your shows since 2018. My favorite episode is when you interviewed that person or whatever it is. So she started with me first. She made herself extremely attractive to the media. First of all, she wrote a book. I already told you that if you're an author, it's so much easier to be attracted to the media, because journalists, TV producers, radio producers, they're human beings like the rest of us, and they're not immune to the power of a book. There's something about someone who's professionally written and professionally produced a book that makes everybody think this person is serious and this is somebody that I need to listen to. TV producers, journalists, radio producers, it works on them as well. They're not immune to that. So she made herself extremely attractive by creating a fantastic professionally produced book. She remained cool. She didn't go crazy within the first 3 months of her book launching. In fact, if you can see on the right, she was on national TV. This was over a year after she launched her book. So completely poo-poos the whole idea that you have to make hay while the sun shines within the first 3 months of launching a book. It's not exactly a year. I think it was like about 10 months after she launched a book, she was on national TV in Canada. So she kept her cool. She started close to home. She was looking at all the outlets in Vancouver. She's a young lady, so she absolutely did not forget the internet, and she wouldn't forget the internet. She gave lots of notice to all of the journalists and TV producers and radio producers that she spoke to, and she's got a ton of endorsements. In fact, her book was actually interviewing 50 of the biggest plant-based brands in the world. So of course they were into it and they ended up endorsing her book. So she had a ton of endorsements as well. And because of her leveraging the Media Machine and building up momentum, 10 months later, she was on nationwide breakfast TV in Canada, the entirety of Canada, by the way, not even just Vancouver, the entirety of Canada. And people know who she is. That's what can happen when you focus and you do it I can't say the word. Methodology, you know what I mean, that word that I can never get my tongue around, but she did that, and that is why 10 months later she ended up where she is. Okay, so I just wanted to, hopefully that excites you and makes you think, wow, I can do that. You can. A lot of people think, oh, Sandra got lucky. There's no luck involved in this, guys. You know, lucky is actually just hard work. Someone who's just behind the scenes chipping away, and she put in the Media Machine. She made it work for her, and that's why she got to where she got to. And anybody can do this so long as you follow the Media Machine. Okay, so let's come out of this. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. So please do come off mute. This is the portion where I like people getting involved. But I'm just going to go through what you wanted to gain from this session and see if I covered that. So David, you're finding out more about the community and how we can support each other. Hopefully you're still getting an idea of what this is all about. Ned said, I'm a fractional marketing director for organizations that put purpose before profit and wish to further raise my profile. What are your thoughts, Ned? Has this given you an idea of how you can start with this?
Yes, I think it has. So, uh, thank you very much. I've not written a book. I guess it's sort of been an idea that's been rattling around right in the back of my head. But I think that there are other. I'm not sure that this is just limited to people that have written a book.
No. I always say a book is like a lubricant. It makes things just smoother, especially when you've written a book, you've already spent time really working out what your story is, what your mission is, what you stand for. All of these things help when you're approaching media.
Yes.
However, there are people who have been able to do it without writing a book. It's not absolutely essential that you write a book. It certainly makes the process smoother.
Okay. I think there's the imposter syndrome part of like, what would I write a book about? Why would anyone want to listen to me?
Yes.
So there's a bit of a journey there that you have to get through, I think.
It certainly is. And trust me, when I started helping people write and publish books back in 2018, I had no idea that I was going to become some kind of pseudo psychologist as well, Ned. That was, as far as I was aware, that wasn't in the job description, but somehow I have become a pseudo psychologist. And there's something else I've noticed, Ned. The more accomplished my client is, the more likely they are to get imposter syndrome, which is
that's very interesting, and I can see that actually. That's an interesting observation.
My most accomplished ones are the ones who get severe imposter syndrome, and it's interesting because logically it makes no sense. Like, you're amazing, you do what you do, and yet I think it's the more you know what you don't know, if that makes sense. I think that's where the big hole of imposter syndrome is. So yes, I've become very adept at helping people through that. I never thought that was something I needed to do, but I've published 46 authors. I'm working with 13 currently. Margaret is one of them. So yeah, it's something I now class as it's part of my role. Part of my role. Thank you, Kareem, for joining us. You've joined us a little bit late, but we will send the replay out to you as well, so you can catch up, Kareem. So don't worry that you've missed anything. Okay, so Stanley says, discovering the best way to stand out in a digital world of information. Has that given you some ideas, Stanley, on how you can do that?
Yes, you have. And I want to just encourage Ned just for a second. Keep showing up to this call. My idea was, why would I want to write a book? Why would I want to be a raindrop in the ocean? And what I'm gaining from this opportunity to learn and grow is that, hey, there's more inside of you than a raindrop, and just keep showing up. That's all I can say. So on the media side, it's just making connections, what I do all day long anyway.
Yep.
Why not make connections with the people that are in that space? And who cares if they say no? Just say next. And that's what I've said with other things. So now I'm going to take that principle and bring it over here. So thank you again. And you're amazing.
Oh, thank you, Stanley. God, the next check is in the post. But but thank you so much. And I appreciate that. And I think what you said something there, Ned, regarding, the imposter syndrome. It's interesting. I think it only seems to happen with books as well. And it's a double-edged sword. The reason why I come from, as you know, I come from a journalist background. I was a copywriter for many years, and then I specialized in books. And a lot of people ask me, why did you specialize in books? You could have specialized in email marketing, for example. You could have become an email marketing consultant, or you could have become a sales page consultant or a web content consultant or whatever. Why did you focus on books? And I said that, you know, when I started working with purpose-driven brands, I work with B Corp founders, social entrepreneurs, plant-based organizations, ethical businesses, etc. I realized that books are in their own category of content. All the other content is seen as content, as in sales. It's mainly divided into sales stuff or information stuff. So either it's selling you something or it's teaching you something, and that's it. Books seem to be in this completely different field where people revere it. Like, we don't have libraries for emails, you know, we don't create things and you know, we don't print off our sales pages and put them in a case to display to people. You know, the books do stand in their own category of content, and we revere those books. You know, I remember one of the most sort of haunting days of my life was visiting I think it's called the Glass Library in Berlin, and basically you just look down into and there's just these pristine shelves, and there's a plaque talking about the book burnings that happened during Hitler's regime. And they were burning books, and the plaque is quite harrowing because it says first they burn books, then they burn people. It's kind of exactly what they did, really. But that is how books are revered. And even when you have authoritarian regimes, one of the first things they do is they destroy books because they don't want people becoming intelligent and becoming knowledgeable. We've seen this throughout history. So before that, because of that, books are revered. And that is why I focus on books, because I know if I can get enough people who are purpose driven to write books, then more people around the world will hear what they're doing and support what they're doing. But the catch-22 here is the imposter syndrome you're feeling is because of that. I bet you don't feel any imposter syndrome creating a LinkedIn article and getting it out there, or writing a blog article, or writing a post on Facebook. You just do it and you don't even think about it. But writing a book suddenly makes you feel like, oh God, I've got to do this right, and I don't know how to do it. So I absolutely get where you're coming from.
I think it's the scale as well. I think you imagine that a book needs to be about a very large subject.
Yes. It's very likely going to be the biggest thing, unless you've done a PhD. Yeah. It's likely going to be the biggest thing you'll write, really. There's not really much else that you'd write. So it can be, it can be daunting. Welcome, Karim. Thank you so much for joining us. I just saw your hi, Mitali, there. So I hope that's really helped you, Stanley and Ned. Margaret, hope that if my book will be published, how to promote the content. Has that given you some ideas? Margaret, by the way, you're already hobnobbing in high places anyway. So I think you definitely, you know, do you want to tell the others a little bit before I put words in your mouth? Okay, so a little bit about what you do?
Hello, everybody. It's nice to meet you all. Yes, I have 38 years experience in the criminal justice system. And throughout my career, I have had very high profile roles with national transformation projects. And actually writing this book has been about other people suggesting I write it, not necessarily something that I wanted to do, but people saying, share your knowledge, share your experience, share all of that. But also because of the current state of the UK system, it is in a very bad way at the moment. And also the society is in a bad way at the moment. We're going through an election. Hopefully things will change. But part of the way, as Mitali's just said about your story, is the basis of this. And what I want to promote is I'm working with a lot of young people at the moment with a charity called the Hope Collective about how to build a fairer society for them to grow up in. And part of that is to recognize that actually I was born in a very disadvantaged area in Liverpool, in England. I lost my dad when I was 8 years old. My mum was very poor. We grew up in a very deprived area. And yet I then met my husband, who sadly passed away 14 years ago, but he became a very strong part of my development. And then obviously had my children, etc. Then I went back to university, got my qualifications, got into everything. And as I say, it's to demonstrate to people that you can have a disadvantaged background, but you can develop and achieve things. And as Mitali said last week, I actually had a meeting with the Shadow Minister at Westminster to describe her role is about crime reduction. It's the Shadow Minister for Crime Reduction. So I was able to share with her everything I've achieved throughout my career. And my book is actually, it was quite easy to write, really, in the sense of each of the transformation programs I've led across the country. I had to produce a report for the government with the outcomes and what had been achieved, etc. So each chapter is a little bit of an adaptation of those reports.
No, but that's brilliant, and you're being very clever here. And I always say, you know, just to answer what you said earlier, Ned, you know, that it is quite a big undertaking. It is. It will be, unless you've done a PhD. It will probably be the biggest document that you will write. However, it's not like you're becoming the next J.K. Rowling and starting a story from scratch. A lot of what is in the book will already be out there in your universe, because part of being a business owner, or even not even just a freelancer or a consultant, part of just existing nowadays is creating silly amounts of content for your socials, for your blogs. It's just part of what we do. So it's more, I tend to find with my clients, very rarely are they actually writing anything from scratch. It's more creating a structure and then finding where everything is, you know, throughout all of their material, and amassing it and putting it together into something that's cohesive. That tends to be what people do, as opposed to writing 40, 50,000 words from scratch. So hopefully that makes you feel a little less overwhelmed, Ned. It is more about finding that perfect structure for your book, and then you'll be amazed how much stuff you've already got out there that you didn't even realize. If you go back to all of your LinkedIn stuff that you've done, or if you do blogging, if you do other, you know, articles for other people, you'll be amazed how much you've already written. It just needs all putting together and making it cohesive. That's kind of all it is. Pretty much like Margaret's done. You know, she didn't really write a book from scratch. A lot of stuff she'd already done over the years, and it's just putting it together into something that's cohesive. Excellent. Okay. Oh, thank you, Stanley. Stanley, you are too much. I definitely do need to send a check in the post, don't I? But thank you so much for that. Okay. So what I'd like to do is, if anyone wants to continue this conversation, let's get on a call, because then there's only so much I can do within 45 minutes here, and also in a group session. On a one-to-one session, I can really figure out what you need. So let me just quickly show you how you do that. Let me just share my screen. So hopefully you can see this. So this will just give you an idea of some of the success that my clients have. They end up in national papers, they end up working with influencers, they end up working with huge teams. You know, that's kind of what we're looking for you. This is what we discuss. We've actually mapped out the road to thought leadership. And what I mean by mapping it out is we figured out that there's 3 unique parts that if you just have one of these things not doing so well, or you're missing, then chances are your book won't do what you wanted to do. So first of all, you need to make sure it's planned and written in a very specific way. We've just talked a little bit about that, Ned, earlier. It's not just about writing a book, it's about doing it in a very specific, structured way. It needs to be edited, designed, and published to a professional standard. Otherwise, it's not taken seriously, and therefore you're not taken seriously. And there also needs to be really strategic marketing and PR, and we had a huge discussion today about that. It's not about just throwing loads of mud at a wall and hoping some of it sticks, which is what some people do. So we can discuss your entire journey and what it looks for you. So we'll look at your book ideas. We'll figure out if thought leadership is for you. It might not be for you, and that's absolutely fine. But we need to answer once and for all whether writing a book and whether thought leadership is right for you. If it is right for you, we'll work out what process is going to get you there. And then finally, only if it is suitable and we think my program, the Thought Leader Ecosystem, will help, only then will I show you it. I'll show you the schedule. I'll show you how long it takes, how much it costs, etc., etc. So in fact, let me put this into the chat now. And then that way, if anybody wants to book a session with me, feel free to do so. So let me just put this into the chat now. There we go. How have I bolded it? I didn't even know I could bold in the chat in Zoom. Oh, it's bolded. I didn't even know that was a thing that you can do. Bold. There we go. Okay, any final questions? I'm aware we're going a little bit over time, but I can stick around for another 10 minutes, definitely. Any questions or any experiences with the media that you want to share? No, I've stunned you all into silence, have I? Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really appreciate it. The old faces, I don't mean old, you know what I mean? People I've seen before, old faces and new faces. I've got to say that, Margaret, because some people might get offended. It's like, who are you calling old? No, I don't mean it old like that. Thank you so much for coming. As I said before, everything that I've discussed today, all the strategies, the media machine, everything will be sent to you in a workbook tomorrow morning. So those of you in the US, it'll actually be in the middle of the night for you. So you'll get everything there. Please do have a read of it and try and remember machine. That's why I create acronyms, because I can create wonderful workbooks and you might read them once and you'll never read them again. Oh, Ned, you have one more thing to say. Please go.
Yeah, just one thing you mentioned and Stanley mentioned that you run these regularly, and what sort of things do you do on your on these regular calls?
So we talk about this two prongs, if you want to call it. Some of the forum meetings are about the practicalities of how to plan and write a book. And then some of the forums, the other 50% is on strategies on how to leverage your book if you're an author. But also, as you found out, a lot of the strategies for leverage you can do even if you're not an author. But as I said before, when you're an author, life is just so much easier, whether it's you're trying to get media attention, whether you're trying to get speaking engagements, etc., etc. There's something about being an author and honing your message that really helps you. So yes, but feel free. They're every Wednesday, 12 p.m. UK time. Which I believe is 7 a.m. in Eastern time. Am I correct there, Stanley? Is it 7 a.m. Eastern time? Oh, you're Eastern, aren't you? I'm pretty sure you're on Eastern. You're on the Eastern Seaboard.
Yeah, it's 7 o'clock Eastern time for me.
Yes, yes. So please feel free to join as many as you want, Ned. You'll get a good grounding of what these books are about. It's what I essentially do is I help people write books to get a bigger mission or cause out there. So what Margaret is doing is a wonderful example, getting people to understand how things are so wrong in the UK when it comes to prisoner rehabilitation, and something needs to give. Otherwise, well, it's already happening, the terrible things that are happening. So, you know, it's not even like otherwise, it's already happening. So, but these books are very specific. They need to be written and leveraged in a specific way. This isn't about just writing creatively and just hoping wonderful things will happen. You know, that doesn't usually happen. So feel free to come to as many as you want.
Okay, thank you.
David, did you have your hand up there, but then it's gone? But
yeah, I did. Thanks. Thank you, everyone. It's been a fantastic session. And yeah, I can't get to any of the dates on your calendar that you put up, but can I
bless
to your
you.
LinkedIn or
Am I too busy for my own good? Is that not? I haven't even checked. Let me actually, this is my assistant to actually sort this out. Let me just, if I go to share screen, so let me see what days am I available. I don't even know what days I'm available myself. So I'm available at 12 and 5 tomorrow, and that's it. So, okay. Right. So when can you do?
I can do after the 6th. I could do the 7th, for instance, or the week after.
Right. Tell you what, I will email you because I already have your email. If you registered to come on here, I'll already have you. I'll send you an email by the end of today and we'll figure something out, David. It just simply could be that my assistant hasn't figured out when I'm available on the following. So I'm sure, put it this way, I'm not on vacation. I know I'm not on vacation that week. So I must be working that week. It's just probably she hasn't created the dates yet.
Yeah,
so let me email you and we'll figure something out.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. It's been a fantastic session. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Have we got anything final? I don't want to cut anybody off. Anything final anyone wants to add? Thank you, everyone, so much for coming. I hope you got value from this, and I hope to see you at a future forum meeting on a Wednesdays. Speak to you all soon. Have a lovely rest of the week.